Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the tactical display with steady eyes. Red dots swarmed across the holographic map like angry insects. 67 alien ships surrounded the human fleet. The odds were not good. "Ma'am, the Zephyrian fleet is hailing us," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. Sarah nodded. "Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, blue-skinned alien with 6 arms and glowing yellow eyes. The creature's translator device crackled as it spoke. "Human Commander, I am Admiral Kexton of the Zephyrian Empire. You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Sarah smiled, a cold expression that made several bridge crew members shiver. "Admiral, I appreciate the offer. But humans don't surrender. We have a saying on Earth, death before dishonor." The alien's eyes widened. In his long military career, Kexton had conquered dozens of species. Every single one had begged for mercy when faced with impossible odds. These humans were different. "You cannot win," Kexton stated. "My sensors show you have only 12 ships. We have 67. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. This is not bravery. This is suicide." Sarah's smile grew wider. "Admiral, you're about to learn why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because when everyone else runs, we charge forward." The transmission ended. Kexton stared at the blank screen, confusion rippling through his thoughts. In the Zephyrian culture, survival was the highest virtue. Honor meant nothing if you were dead. These humans clearly thought differently. On the human flagship, Sarah turned to her crew. "All hands, this is the commander. Today, we face an enemy that thinks humans are weak. They believe we'll break when things get tough. They're wrong." Her voice carried across every ship in the human fleet through the communication network. Marines, pilots, engineers, and medics all stopped their work to listen. For 300 years, humans have explored space. We've met dozens of alien species. Some welcomed us. Others tried to destroy us. But we're still here. We're still pushing forward into the unknown. Today, we show the galaxy what human courage looks like. The crew erupted in cheers. In the fighter bay, pilots ran to their ships. In the engineering sections, technicians pushed the reactors to maximum power. The humans were afraid, but fear only made them fight harder. On the Zephyrian flagship, sensor operator Veltar studied his readings with growing alarm. "Admiral, the human ships are advancing toward us." Kexton rushed to the sensor station. "That's impossible. They should be trying to escape." "No sir, they're accelerating directly at our battle line. Their fighters are launching. I'm reading massive energy spikes from their weapon systems." Kexton had fought in over 200 space battles. He understood tactics, strategy, and the psychology of warfare. This made no sense. The humans were clearly outgunned. Any rational species would try to run or negotiate. "Perhaps their FTL drives are damaged," suggested his tactical officer. "They might have no choice but to fight." "No," Kexton replied, studying the human formation. "Look at their approach vector. They're not fleeing or positioning defensively. They're attacking. Deliberately." The first wave of human fighters streaked past the Zephyrian lines like silver bullets. Their ships were smaller and less armored than Zephyrian fighters, but they moved with deadly precision. The human pilots flew their craft through spaces that seemed impossibly narrow, weaving between the larger alien vessels. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez pulled his fighter into a tight spiral, dodging plasma bolts from a Zephyrian destroyer. His ship shuddered under the stress, but he held his course. The alien crew probably thought he was trying to escape. They were wrong. Marcus flipped his fighter around in a maneuver that would have killed most alien pilots. The G-forces pressed him deep into his seat, but his training held. He locked onto the destroyer's engine ports and fired. The missiles struck home. the Zephyrian ship lurched as its engines failed. Marcus was already gone, racing toward his next target. Across the battle zone, similar scenes played out. Human fighters attacked with a ferocity that stunned the alien crews. They took risks that seemed suicidal, but somehow survived through skill and determination. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the heavy cruiser Manchester. Her ship was outnumbered 3-1, but she pressed the attack anyway. The Manchester's railguns fired continuously, hurling metal slugs at relativistic speeds. Each shot hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. "Captain, the alien ships are trying to surround us," reported her tactical officer. "Let them come," Elena replied. "All batteries, continuous fire." "Engineering, I need everything you can give me." The Manchester pushed through the Zephyrian formation like a battering ram. Alien ships scattered to avoid her guns. Those that didn't move fast enough were destroyed. On the Zephyrian flagship, chaos reigned on the bridge. Reports flooded in from across the fleet. The humans were everywhere, striking from unexpected angles with impossible courage. "Admiral, the destroyer Velmoth is reporting heavy damage." "The humans are targeting our engines and weapons." "The frigate squadron in Sector 7 is under attack." "The humans are using suicide runs." "Wait, belay that." "The human fighters are pulling out." "They're not suicide runs. They're precision strikes." Kexton struggled to understand what he was seeing. The human tactics made no sense by Zephyrian standards. They attacked stronger positions without hesitation. They took risks that should have gotten them killed. Yet somehow, they were winning. "Sir, recommend we fall back and reorganize," suggested his second-in-command. "The humans are fighting like madmen." "No," Kexton said firmly. "We still outnumber them. Order all ships to close formation. Concentrate our fire." But the human fleet wasn't where the Zephyrian computers predicted they would be. Commander Chen had split her forces into 3 groups. One attacked from the front, drawing alien attention. The other 2 flanked from above and below the orbital plane. The human ships moved like wolves hunting in a pack. They coordinated their attacks with deadly efficiency. When one group drew enemy fire, the others struck from blindside angles. Major David Park led a squadron of marine assault ships directly at the largest Zephyrian battleship. The alien vessel bristled with weapons and shields that could stop most attacks. But Park had studied the ship's design during the approach. "All Marines, listen up," he broadcast to his troops. "We're going to board that battleship. It's going to be dangerous. Some of us might not make it home. But that's what we signed up for." His transport ships raced through the weapon fire, using the battleship's own bulk to block shots from other vessels. The alien crew tried to shoot them down, but the humans moved too fast and too unpredictably. Park's ship slammed into the battleship's hull with a thunderous crash. Magnetic clamps engaged, holding the transport in place. Cutting torches began burning through the alien armor. Inside the Zephyrian ship, alarms screamed. The crew had never faced boarding action before. Most species in the galaxy considered it too dangerous and primitive. The hull plate fell away with a crash. Marine Sergeant Lisa Wong dropped through the hole, her rifle already firing. Behind her came 50 more Marines, advancing with calm professionalism into the alien ship. The Zephyrians fought back, but they had never trained for close combat. Their weapons were designed for ship-to-ship battles, not fighting in narrow corridors. The human Marines moved through the ship like a storm, taking control of critical systems. Throughout the battle zone, the tide was turning. The human fleet had lost 3 ships, but they had destroyed or disabled 15 Zephyrian vessels. The aliens were beginning to realize that superior numbers didn't guarantee victory. On the bridge of the Defiance, Sarah watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The plan was working. The aliens had expected the humans to fight defensively. Instead, the human fleet had attacked with everything they had. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from the Zephyrian flagship," reported Torres. Sarah nodded. "Put it through." Admiral Kexton appeared on the screen again. This time, his confident expression was gone. Human Commander, your tactics are unusual. We do not understand why you choose to fight when retreat is possible. Admiral, that's the difference between humans and most other species. We don't see retreat as an option when our people are in danger. We see it as abandoning our duty. But surely survival is more important than abstract concepts like duty and honor? Sarah shook her head. Some things are worth dying for, Admiral. Freedom, family, the future of our species. Humans learned long ago that running from every fight just means you'll eventually have nowhere left to run. Kexton was silent for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew continued to report casualties and damage. The human attack showed no signs of slowing down. Your species is either very brave or very foolish, he finally said. Maybe both, Sarah replied. But we're still here, and we're still fighting. The question is, Admiral, are you ready to find out what happens when humans get serious? The transmission ended, leaving Kexton staring at the tactical display. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed. The remaining ships were scattered and demoralized. The humans had turned what should have been an easy victory into a nightmare. In the distance, more human ships appeared on the sensors. Reinforcements were arriving. The small fleet that had seemed so outnumbered was about to become much larger. Kex then realized he had made a terrible mistake. He had underestimated not just human technology or tactics, but their fundamental nature. These weren't just warriors. They were something far more dangerous. They were humans who refused to give up. The reinforcements that appeared on Kexton's sensors weren't what he expected. Instead of massive battleships, the new arrivals were cargo vessels, medical ships, and civilian transports. But each one bristled with improvised weapons and carried something more dangerous than any military hardware: angry humans who had heard about the attack. Captain Roy Mitchell commanded the converted freighter New Brisbane. His ship had been hauling grain to the outer colonies when the distress call came through. Like hundreds of other civilian captains, he had immediately changed course to join the fight. Roy, are you sure about this? Asked his navigator, Jenny Walsh. We're not a warship. We're a cargo hauler with some guns welded to the hull. Roy smiled grimly. Jenny, my grandfather fought in the Battle of Brisbane back on Earth. He was just a truck driver, but when the enemy came, he picked up a rifle. Today, we carry on that tradition. The freighter's cargo holds had been hastily converted. Where grain containers once sat, now there were missile launchers operated by volunteer crews. Farmers, miners, and shop owners worked side by side with retired military personnel to keep the weapons firing. Admiral Kex then watched the civilian ships join the battle with growing amazement. This wasn't how warfare worked in the galaxy. Civilians ran from battles. They didn't seek them out. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the new human vessels, reported his communications officer. They're demanding we surrender immediately. Demanding? These are cargo ships. Yes, sir, but they're armed. And, sir, there are more arriving every few minutes. Kexton studied the tactical display with mounting alarm. What had started as a 67-12 advantage was now becoming a fair fight. Worse, the humans showed no signs of slowing their attacks. On the human side, the battle had evolved into something beautiful and terrible. Ships designed for commerce worked alongside military vessels. Farmers who had never left their home systems flew fighters with the same deadly determination as career pilots. Dr. Amanda Foster commanded the hospital ship Mercy. Her vessel was supposed to treat wounded, not join the fighting. But, when she saw human ships taking damage, she made a decision that would have shocked most alien observers. All medical teams, prepare for emergency operations, she announced over the ship's intercom. Navigation, take us into the battle zone. We're not leaving anyone behind. The Mercy raced between the warring fleets, her medical shuttles darting out to rescue pilots from damaged fighters. Each rescue mission took place under enemy fire, but the medical teams never hesitated. They had taken an oath to save lives, and no alien fleet would stop them. Lieutenant Commander James Park, David's younger brother, piloted one of these medical shuttles. His small craft wove through the battlefield like a dancer, dodging plasma bolts and missiles to reach a pilot whose fighter had been crippled. "Hang on, Phoenix 5, he called over the radio. "Medical extraction coming your way." "Negative, medical shuttle," came the reply. "Too much enemy fire. Don't risk it." James ignored the warning. He brought his shuttle alongside the damaged fighter just as a Zephyrian cruiser locked onto both ships with its weapons. The alien crew expected the medical ship to flee. Instead, James activated a feature that surprised everyone. The hospital shuttle's shields expanded, covering both vessels. The Zephyrian weapons struck the medical shields and deflected harmlessly. While the aliens recharged their guns, James grabbed the wounded pilot and accelerated away. "How did you do that?" asked the rescued pilot. "Human engineering," James replied with a grin. "We build our medical ships tough. Never know when you'll need to work in a war zone." This philosophy extended throughout the human fleet. Every ship, from the largest battlecruiser to the smallest supply vessel, was designed for worst-case scenarios. Human engineers didn't just plan for normal operations. They planned for catastrophic failures, surprise attacks, and impossible situations. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez worked in the engine room of the heavy cruiser Manchester. When alien weapons overloaded the ship's main reactor, most crews would have abandoned the section. Rosa and her team stayed at their posts. "Chief, the containment field is failing," shouted her assistant over the alarms. "We need to evacuate." "Not yet," Rosa replied calmly. "Johnson, reroute power from the auxiliary systems. Kim, initialize the emergency cooling. We can hold this together." The alien weapons had damaged the reactor in ways that should have caused an explosion. But Rosa's team worked with the desperate efficiency that humans showed in crisis situations. They bypassed failing systems, jury-rigged repairs, and somehow kept the ship fighting. "Reactor stable," Johnson reported 15 minutes later. "How did you know that would work?" "Human stubbornness," Rosa answered. "Sometimes refusing to accept defeat is the same as winning." This attitude spread throughout the battle. Human crews performed repairs that alien engineers would have considered impossible. They kept fighting with damaged weapons, broken shields, and failing life support systems. Major David Park and his Marines had fought their way to the bridge of the Zephyrian battleship. The alien crew had barricaded themselves behind blast doors, but the humans methodically cut through each barrier. "This is insane," muttered one of the Zephyrian officers as the human cutting torches burned through the final door. "They should have died 10 times by now." Captain Zelvar, the ship's commander, watched the humans advance with fascination and terror. They moved with professional calm, covering each other's movements and advancing steadily despite heavy resistance. "Sir, should we activate the self-destruct?" asked his tactical officer. Zelvar hesitated. Destroying his own ship to stop the human borders seemed extreme. But these humans had already done the impossible. Maybe extreme measures were necessary. The blast door finally fell away. Sergeant Lisa Wong stepped through the opening, her rifle trained on the alien bridge crew. Behind her came 20 Marines, their weapons ready but not firing. "Zephyrian vessel, you are now under human control," announced Major Park. "Lay down your weapons and you will not be harmed." Captain Zelvar stared at the human officer. "You're taking prisoners? In a boarding action?" "Of course. Why wouldn't we?" The concept seemed to confuse the alien captain. In Zephyrian warfare, boarding actions were fights to the death. But these humans had rules about treating prisoners fairly, even in the middle of battle. "Your species is very strange," Zelvar said as he slowly placed his sidearm on the deck. "We get that a lot," replied Park with a slight smile. Throughout the captured ship, human Marines established control with minimal bloodshed. They treated wounded Zephyrians with the same care they showed their own injured. The alien crew couldn't understand this behavior. Back in the main battle, Admiral Kexton was beginning to realize the scope of his mistake. The humans weren't just refusing to surrender. They were winning. "Sir, recommend immediate withdrawal," urged his tactical officer. "We've lost 31 ships. The humans have reinforced to over 40 vessels." "No," Kexton replied. "The Empire does not retreat from primitive species. Signal all ships to close formation. We'll destroy them with concentrated fire." But the human fleet had no intention of making themselves easy targets. Commander Sarah Chen had been studying Zephyrian tactics throughout the battle. She knew their next move before they made it. "All ships, execute dispersal pattern Delta," she ordered. "Make them work for every shot." The human vessels spread out across the battlefield like seeds on the wind. When the Zephyrians concentrated their fire on one area, they found empty space. The humans had already moved to new positions. Fighter pilot Maria Santos led her squadron in a daring attack on the alien flagship. Her small craft raced through the forest of enemy ships, dodging weapons fire with moves that would have been impossible for most alien pilots to survive. "Santos, you're flying like a maniac," called her wingman over the radio. "That's the point," Maria replied. "These aliens think logically. They can't predict crazy." Her squadron struck the flagship's shield generators with pinpoint precision. Each fighter carried only 2 missiles, but they used them perfectly. The massive alien ship's shields flickered and died. "Shields down on the flagship," reported Lieutenant Torres from the Defiance bridge. "All ships, target of opportunity." The human fleet responded immediately. Railguns, particle beams, and missiles converged on the Zephyrian command ship. The alien vessel's armor began to buckle under the concentrated assault. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Kexton felt his ship shudder with each impact. His tactical displays showed massive damage across all systems. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to restore defenses. "Admiral, we must withdraw," pleaded his second-in-command. "The ship cannot take much more punishment." Kexton stared at the tactical display showing human ships advancing from all directions. These creatures fought with a combination of tactical brilliance and suicidal courage that defied everything he understood about warfare. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "General withdrawal. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance." The Zephyrian vessels began pulling back, their formation dissolving as each captain tried to save his own ship. But the humans weren't finished. They pursued the retreating aliens, continuing to inflict damage with precise, devastating attacks. "Sir, the humans are following us," reported the sensor operator. "Of course they are," Kexton replied with bitter admiration. "They don't know when to stop." Captain Elena Vesquez pressed her attack on a fleeing Zephyrian destroyer. Her ship Manchester had taken severe damage, but her crew kept fighting with grim determination. "Captain, we've lost main engines," reported her engineer. "Auxiliary power only." "Then, we use auxiliary power," Elena replied. "Continue the pursuit." The damaged human cruiser limped after the alien destroyer, firing with whatever weapons still functioned. The Zephyrian crew couldn't believe what they were seeing. The human ship should have stopped to make repairs. Instead, it kept attacking. Dr. Foster's hospital ship Mercy followed in the wake of the advancing human fleet, collecting wounded from both sides. Her medical teams worked tirelessly to save alien and human lives alike. "Doctor, why are we treating the enemy wounded?" asked one of her nurses. "Because they're not our enemies anymore," Amanda replied. "They're patients. And patients get the best care we can provide." This confused the captured Zephyrian crews even more. These humans fought like demons, but treated prisoners like honored guests. They seemed to have 2 completely different personalities that switched on and off depending on the situation. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Chen watched the alien fleet retreat. The battle was won, but she felt no satisfaction. Too many good people had died today. "Ma'am, Admiral Kexton is requesting a private communication," reported Torres. "Put him through." The alien admiral appeared on screen. His proud demeanor from earlier was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. Commander Chen, I must ask you something. Why do humans fight the way you do? Logic suggests you should have retreated when faced with superior numbers. Sarah considered the question carefully. Admiral, humans learned long ago that some things are worth fighting for, regardless of the odds. Freedom, justice, the right to exist without fear. When those things are threatened, we don't calculate probabilities. We just fight. Even when you know you might lose? Especially then. Running from a fight you might lose means you'll definitely lose what you're protecting. Kexton was quiet for a long moment. Your species is unlike any other in the galaxy. Most races seek safety above all else. That's their choice, Sarah replied. But humans believe safety without freedom isn't really living. The communication ended, leaving Kexton to ponder what he had learned. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had shown him a completely different way of thinking about life, duty, and courage. As the Zephyrian fleet continued its retreat, the human ships regrouped to tend their wounded and repair their damage. They had won against overwhelming odds, but the cost had been heavy. Yet even as they mourned their losses, the human crews were already preparing for whatever came next. Because that's what humans did. They faced the unknown with courage, stubbornness, and an unshakable belief that tomorrow could be better than today. 3 weeks after the battle, Admiral Kexton sat in his private quarters aboard the Zephyrian flagship, staring at reports that made no sense. According to his intelligence officers, the humans had not only repaired their fleet but expanded it. More disturbing still, word of the human victory was spreading across the galaxy. Sir, incoming transmission from the Galactic Council, announced his aide. Kex then accepted the call. The holographic image of Counselor Vexhai materialized in his quarters. The ancient Etherian's translucent features showed displeasure. Admiral, explain to me how a primitive human fleet defeated your forces. Counselor, the humans are not as primitive as our intelligence suggested. Their tactics, their technology, and especially their psychology are far more advanced than we anticipated. Psychology? Vexhai's voice carried skepticism. You were defeated by alien thoughts? Kexton chose his words carefully. Counselor, humans possess a trait that we have not encountered before in any spacefaring species. They refuse to accept defeat, even when logic demands surrender. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Defiance, Commander Sarah Chen was dealing with her own communications from Earth. The victory had made her a hero, but it had also created new problems. Admiral Morrison wants a full tactical analysis, reported Lieutenant Torres. Command is also requesting detailed psychological profiles of the Zephyrian forces. Sarah nodded. Tell Admiral Morrison that the Zephyrians fight like most logical species. They calculate odds, minimize risks, and preserve resources. What they don't understand is human unpredictability. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the fleet's xenopsychologist, entered the briefing room with a thick datapad. Commander, I've completed my analysis of the captured Zephyrian personnel. The results are fascinating. She activated the holographic display. Brain scans from both species appeared side by side. The Zephyrian mind is highly organized. They process information logically, make decisions based on probability calculations, and avoid unnecessary risks. It's actually a very efficient way to think. And humans? Asked Sarah. We're chaos incarnate by comparison. Human brains constantly generate random thoughts, emotional responses, and irrational impulses. Most species would consider this a severe mental disorder. Sarah smiled. But it makes us unpredictable. Exactly. The Zephyrians could never predict our tactics because our own pilots didn't know what they were going to do until they did it. The human fleet had established a temporary base in the asteroid belt where the battle occurred. What the aliens didn't know was that this wasn't just a repair station. It was becoming something much larger. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez floated in zero gravity outside the heavy cruiser Manchester, directing a team of technicians as they attached new armor plating. The ship bore scars from the recent battle, but each repair made it stronger than before. "Chief, this new armor is 30% heavier than the original specs," noted her assistant. "Good," Rosa replied through her helmet communicator. "Next time we fight, we'll hit harder and take more punishment." This philosophy extended throughout the human repair efforts. Instead of simply fixing damage, they were improving every system. The fleet that would eventually leave this asteroid field would be far more dangerous than the one that had arrived. Captain Roy Mitchell's converted freighter New Brisbane had become a mobile factory. In its converted cargo bays, human engineers worked around the clock to produce weapons, ammunition, and spare parts. The ship's original crew of 12 had been joined by over 200 volunteers from other vessels. "Roy, we're producing more missiles than our entire fleet can carry," reported his new weapons officer, a former Navy engineer named Tom Bradley. "Then, we'll build more ships to carry them," Roy replied. "Humans don't do anything halfway." Word of the human victory had indeed spread across the galaxy, creating reactions that no one had anticipated. On the trading station Deep Space 7, alien merchants gathered in small groups to discuss the impossible news. Merchant Captain Zilkar of the Vorthan Consortium spoke in hushed tones to his colleagues. "They say the humans defeated a full Zephyrian battle fleet with just a dozen ships." "Impossible," replied Captain Nelvar of the Centaurian Trade Guild. "The Zephyrians have conquered 47 star systems. They don't lose battles to inferior forces." "Yet they did," insisted Zilkar. "I spoke to a Tellurian who witnessed the aftermath. Human ships everywhere, Zephyrian vessels in retreat. The humans didn't just win. They dominated." On the agricultural world of New Harvest, human colonists received the news with a mixture of pride and concern. Mayor Janet Clark addressed the gathered population in the town square. "Friends, we've received confirmation that our fleet defeated the Zephyrian invasion force. But we shouldn't celebrate yet. This victory might bring more enemies than it drives away." Her words proved prophetic. In the depths of space, the Hegemony Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 12 major alien civilizations gathered on the neutral station Concordia Prime. "The human situation has become untenable," declared Ambassador Rixtal of the Supremacy. "They pose a threat to galactic stability." "Agreed," added Councillor Vethmar of the Central Worlds. "A species that refuses to surrender cannot be negotiated with. They are unpredictable and dangerous." But not all aliens saw the humans as a threat. On the research station Kepler-7, Dr. W. E. Eltan of the Altarian Science Collective studied human combat recordings with fascination. "Remarkable," she murmured to her assistant. "Look at this tactical sequence. The human pilot performs a maneuver that should have killed him. But he calculated the exact stress limits of his fighter and pushed them to the maximum." "But, Dr. W. E. Eltan, that's incredibly risky. No rational pilot would attempt such a thing." "Exactly. These humans are willing to risk everything for victory. Imagine what they could accomplish in scientific research with that same attitude." Back on the human fleet, Major David Park was discovering that capturing a Zephyrian battleship brought unexpected complications. The alien crew of nearly 3,000 had become prisoners of war, and they needed food, medical care, and housing. "Major, the Zephyrians are requesting permission to contact their families," reported Sergeant Wong. David considered this. Military protocols suggested that prisoner communications should be restricted. But human ethics demanded that captives be treated humanely. "Grant the request. Monitor the calls for security, but let them talk to their loved ones." This decision puzzled Captain Zelvar and his crew. They had expected harsh treatment as defeated enemies. Instead, the humans provided them with comfortable quarters, regular meals, and even entertainment systems loaded with human cultural materials. "I don't understand these creatures," Zelvar confided to his first officer. "They fight like demons, but treat us like guests." Dr. Amanda Foster had established a joint medical facility on the captured battleship. Her teams worked alongside Zephyrian medics to treat wounded from both sides. The alien doctors were amazed by human medical techniques. Dr. Foster, this procedure you showed us for treating plasma burns is incredible, said Dr. Colvin, the ship's chief medical officer. It's far more effective than our methods. We developed it during the Titan colony disaster, Amanda explained. Humans tend to improve our techniques after every crisis. Pain teaches us to be better. But surely learning such lessons requires many deaths? Yes. But we remember those who died, and we make sure their sacrifice teaches us something valuable. This conversation was overheard by other Zephyrian crew members. Word spread through the ship that humans actually learn from their mistakes instead of simply avoiding risky situations. The concept was revolutionary to minds that prioritized safety above all else. Commander Sarah Chen was preparing for a very different kind of challenge. Intelligence reports indicated that multiple alien fleets were converging on human space. The victory against the Zephyrians had been noticed by powers far greater than anyone had anticipated. Ma'am, long-range sensors are detecting fleet movements in 6 different sectors, reported Lieutenant Torres. It looks like half the galaxy is mobilizing. Sarah studied the tactical projections with calm eyes. The odds were worse than anything they had faced before. Hundreds of alien ships would soon arrive to test human resolve. Signal all human vessels in this sector. Emergency conference in 2 hours. The meeting took place aboard the captured Zephyrian battleship, now renamed the UES Freedom. Representatives from every human ship gathered in the vessel's main conference room. Military officers sat alongside civilian captains, engineers, and medical personnel. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah began, our victory 3 weeks ago has attracted unwanted attention. Intelligence suggests that a coalition of alien powers is assembling the largest fleet in galactic history. Their objective is to eliminate the human threat permanently. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. The next battle would determine whether humanity continued to exist as a free species. We have perhaps 2 weeks before they arrive, Sarah continued. That gives us time to prepare. The question is, do we run, or do we fight? Captain Mitchell spoke first. Commander, my crew voted before this meeting. We're miners and farmers, not soldiers. But we're not leaving. Similar declarations came from around the room. Ship after ship committed to staying and fighting, despite the impossible odds. Very well, Sarah said. Then, we prepare for the battle of our lives. Chief Martinez, I want every ship equipped with the heaviest weapons we can manage. Dr. Foster, prepare triage facilities for massive casualties. Major Park, train every civilian who's willing to learn how to fight. The next 2 weeks transformed the asteroid belt into a fortress. Human ingenuity turned chunks of rock into weapons platforms. Civilian ships received military-grade armor and weapons. Most importantly, every human in the fleet trained constantly for the coming battle. Fighter pilot Maria Santos worked with volunteers from the mining vessels, teaching them basic combat maneuvers. Her students were cargo pilots and asteroid hoppers, but they learned with the fierce determination that characterized their species. Remember, she told them during a training session, aliens expect us to fight logically. So don't. Trust your instincts, take crazy risks, and never give up. Confusion is our greatest weapon. On the research vessel Newton, Dr. Sarah Kim led a team of scientists in developing new weapons technologies. Working around the clock, they created innovations that would have taken years under normal circumstances. Doctor, this missile guidance system you've designed is brilliant, noted her assistant. It uses quantum entanglement for targeting. Necessity is the mother of invention, Sarah replied. When your species faces extinction, you find ways to make impossible things work. The captured Zephyrian crew watched these preparations with growing amazement. Captain Zelvar found himself admiring human determination even as he feared their power. First officer, observe these humans carefully, he said. They face annihilation, yet they work with cheerful efficiency. Any other species would be paralyzed by despair. Sir, should we offer to help with their preparations? Zelvar considered this. His duty was to the Zephyrian Empire, But these humans had treated his crew with unexpected kindness. Discreetly offer our technical knowledge to their engineers. If asked, say it's payment for our humane treatment. As the 2 weeks drew to a close, the human fleet had grown from 40 ships to over 100. Every human vessel within 3 parsecs had responded to the call for help. They came knowing they might not survive, but unwilling to abandon their species' future. The final fleet composition included everything from massive cargo haulers converted to battleships, to small research vessels armed with improvised weapons. It was a ragtag assembly that no military academy would have approved. But it was entirely, unmistakably human. Commander Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the long-range sensors as alien fleets began arriving at the edge of the system. The coalition force was enormous. Over 300 ships representing a dozen different species. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from the coalition flagship," reported Torres. "Put it through." The screen filled with the image of Admiral Rixtal of the Supremacy. The reptilian alien's features showed cold determination. "Human Commander, I am Admiral Rixtal. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Your species has been deemed a threat to galactic peace. Comply, and your deaths will be swift." Sarah smiled the same cold smile she had shown Admiral Kexton weeks earlier. "Admiral, humans have a traditional response to demands for surrender. I believe you'll find it educational." Admiral Rixtal stared at the human commander's image with growing irritation. In his 3 centuries of military service, no inferior species had ever refused his demands. These humans clearly needed a demonstration of superior firepower. "Human, you face the combined might of 12 galactic civilizations. We have over 300 warships against your pathetic collection of converted cargo vessels. Logic demands you surrender immediately." Sarah Chen's smile never wavered. "Admiral, let me share something about human logic. We calculate odds differently than other species. Where you see 300 ships, we see 300 targets." The transmission ended. On the coalition flagship, Rixtal turned to his tactical staff with barely controlled anger. "Signal all vessels. Form attack formation. We will crush these primitives quickly." But Admiral Kexton, whose Zephyrian fleet had been incorporated into the coalition force, felt a chill of recognition. He had seen that same confident smile before. It preceded the worst military defeat in Zephyrian history. "Admiral Rixtal," he interjected, "I recommend caution. These humans are not what they appear to be." Rixtal's reptilian eyes fixed on the Zephyrian admiral with contempt. "You lost to these creatures because you were unprepared. We are not." The coalition fleet advanced in perfect formation. 300 ships moved like a single organism, their movements coordinated by advanced tactical computers. It was beautiful, precise, and exactly what the humans were counting on. On the bridge of the Defiance, Sarah watched the alien approach with satisfaction. "All ships, execute Plan Crazy Ivan. Remember, chaos is our friend." The human fleet responded by doing something that broke every rule of space combat. Instead of forming defensive lines or organizing tactical formations, they scattered in random directions. Ships accelerated along impossible vectors, some diving toward the system's star, others racing for the outer planets. "What are they doing?" demanded Admiral Rixtal as his tactical display showed human vessels flying in all directions. "Sir, their movements appear random," reported his tactical officer. "There's no discernible pattern." "Then, destroy them individually. Signal all ships to pursue and engage." The coalition fleet broke formation to chase the fleeing humans. But, as Rixtal would soon discover, the humans weren't fleeing. They were positioning themselves for the most audacious ambush in galactic history. Captain Roy Mitchell guided his converted freighter New Brisbane toward the system's asteroid belt. Behind him followed 20 other civilian vessels, their cargo holds packed with surprises that would have amazed any alien observer. "Roy, the hegemony cruiser is closing fast," reported his navigator Jenny Walsh. "Good. Let them think we're running scared." The hegemony vessel pursued the human ships into the asteroid field, confident of an easy victory. What they didn't know was that human engineers had spent 2 weeks turning random space rocks into weapons platforms. As the alien cruiser passed the largest asteroid, hidden fusion reactors activated. The rock split open like a flower, revealing massive railgun batteries that immediately opened fire. The hegemony ship's shields overloaded in seconds. "Impossible," shouted the alien captain as his vessel took devastating hits. "Asteroids don't have weapons." "Human asteroids do," Roy Mitchell replied over the open channel. Surprise! Throughout the system, similar traps activated. Human ingenuity had turned debris fields, abandoned mining equipment, and even derelict satellites into deadly weapons. The scattered human ships weren't running. They were herding the aliens into killing zones. Fighter pilot Maria Santos led her squadron in a desperate-looking retreat toward the system's gas giant. 6 alien fighters pursued them, confident of intercepting the fleeing humans. But, as they entered the planet's ring system, Maria smiled. "All pilots, activate ring mines." The ice particles in the planet's ring suddenly exploded in brilliant flashes. Each chunk of ice contained a small fusion charge, turning the beautiful ring system into a massive minefield. The pursuing alien fighters vanished in nuclear fire. Santos to all units. Ring system cleared. Beginning attack run on the alien battleship. Her squadron, now reinforced by reserve fighters hidden in the planet's atmosphere, raced toward the massive supremacy dreadnought. The alien vessel's weapons tracked the approaching humans, but Maria's pilots flew with the chaotic unpredictability that made them impossible to target effectively. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Rixtal watched his carefully planned assault dissolve into confusion. Human ships appeared from unexpected directions, struck with devastating effect, and vanished before his forces could respond. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the Third Fleet," reported his communications officer. "The humans have destroyed or disabled 18 ships in the last 10 minutes. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated they had primitive technology." Admiral Kexton spoke quietly from his position at the rear of the bridge. "Admiral, human technology isn't primitive. It's simply focused on different priorities. They build systems that work in impossible situations." The truth of Kexton's words became apparent as the battle continued. Human ships fought with damaged weapons, failed shields, and compromised life support systems. When their primary systems failed, they switched to backups. When backups failed, they improvised solutions that violated every principle of safe engineering. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez demonstrated this philosophy aboard the heavy cruiser Manchester. When alien weapons destroyed the ship's main reactor, her team didn't evacuate. They rigged a backup fusion plant using parts cannibalized from the ship's shuttlecraft. "Chief, the containment field is unstable," warned her assistant. "If this fails, we'll have a nuclear explosion inside the ship." "Then, we don't let it fail," Rosa replied calmly. "Johnson, reroute power from the galley fusion units. Kim, bypass the safety interlocks. We're going to push this thing past the red line." The improvised reactor came online just as alien forces surrounded the Manchester. Captain Elena Vasquez felt her ship shudder as the experimental power plant fed energy to the weapons systems. "All guns, continuous fire," she ordered. "Let's show them what human engineering can do." The Manchester's railguns fired with power levels that should have been impossible. Each shot carried enough energy to crack a planet's crust. The alien ships that had been closing for the kill suddenly found themselves facing a weapon that could destroy them with a single hit. Throughout the battle zone, human crews performed similar miracles. They kept fighting with ships that should have been dead in space. They improvised repairs that alien engineers would have sworn were impossible. Most importantly, they never stopped believing they could win. Dr. Amanda Foster's hospital ship Mercy had become a mobile command center for coordinating medical and tactical operations. Her facility treated wounded from both sides while simultaneously serving as a communications hub for the scattered human fleet. "Doctor, the alien prisoners are requesting permission to help with medical operations," reported one of her nurses. Amanda considered this request. The captured Zephyrian medical staff had been watching human doctors work for weeks. They understood human techniques and could provide valuable assistance. Grant the request. Anyone who wants to help save lives is welcome here. The sight of human and alien doctors working side by side confused many coalition officers. Their computers couldn't process the idea that enemies would cooperate to save lives during battle. Major David Park had converted his captured Zephyrian battleship into a mobile fortress. The vessel's alien crew had volunteered to help operate their own ship against their former allies. It was an unprecedented situation in galactic warfare. "Major, why are you fighting alongside your captives?" asked Captain Zelvar. "Because you're not our enemies anymore," David replied. "You're part of our crew. And humans don't abandon their crew." The reformed crew of the UES Freedom fought with desperate efficiency. Zephyrian technical knowledge combined with human tactical flexibility created a combination that the coalition forces couldn't counter. On the bridge, Zephyrian officers worked alongside human marines to coordinate attacks. Cultural differences evaporated in the face of shared danger. They weren't aliens and humans anymore. They were simply comrades fighting for survival. Captain Zelvar, enemy cruiser approaching from starboard, reported a human sensor operator. "Understood. Helm, bring us around. Weapons, target their engine section." The ship moved with deadly precision, its mixed crew working together as if they had trained together for years. The approaching alien vessel found itself facing weapons fire directed by officers who understood their technology intimately. As the battle raged across the solar system, Admiral Rixtal began to understand the magnitude of his mistake. The humans weren't just fighting a conventional battle. They were rewriting the rules of space warfare. "Sir, our formation is completely disrupted," reported his tactical officer. "Human ships are attacking from 17 different vectors. Our computers can't track all the threats. How many ships have we lost?" 73 destroyed, 41 disabled. "The humans have lost 12 ships." Rixtal stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His overwhelming numerical advantage had been turned into a liability. The humans had used their own size against them, creating confusion and chaos that favored the smaller, more agile human force. "Admiral," interrupted Admiral Kex, "then, I strongly recommend withdrawal. These humans have demonstrated capabilities that our intelligence never predicted." "Withdrawal?" Rixtal's voice carried shock and outrage. "The Coalition has never retreated from primitive species." "Sir, these are not primitive species. They are something entirely new." On the human side, Commander Sarachin was coordinating a final assault that would either end the battle or end human civilization. Every surviving human ship was converging on the Coalition flagship for a last desperate attack. "All ships, this is Commander Chen. Today we decide whether humanity remains free. Every ship, every pilot, every marine, give them everything you have." The response was immediate. Human vessels raced toward the massive Coalition flagship from dozens of directions. They flew through the fire of escort ships without slowing down. Some were destroyed, but others pressed on with mechanical determination. "Ma'am, the flagship's shields are too strong," reported Lieutenant Torres. "Our weapons aren't penetrating." "Then, we get closer," Sarah replied. "Signal all ships. Ramming speed." The order horrified alien observers, but human crews responded without hesitation. Their ships accelerated toward the enemy flagship, prepared to sacrifice themselves to protect their species' future. Fighter pilot Maria Santos led her squadron directly into the flagship's weapon batteries. Half her pilots were killed in the first seconds, but the survivors pressed their attack with suicidal courage. "Santos to all units. Follow me in. Make every shot count." Her fighter disappeared in a ball of plasma as alien point defense systems found their target. But her wingman, Lieutenant Carlos Rodriguez, continued the attack. His ship struck the flagship's shield generator with enough force to crack the massive installation. "Shields down," shouted dozens of voices across the human communication network. The flagship suddenly found itself naked before the human assault. Railgun slugs, particle beams, and missiles converged on the massive vessel. Its armor began to buckle under the concentrated fire. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Rixtal watched his ship die around him. Emergency lights flashed as system after system failed. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore defenses. "Admiral, recommend immediate evacuation," urged his aide. Rixtal looked at the tactical display one last time. The human fleet, reduced to fewer than 60 ships, continued attacking with undiminished fury. They had lost nearly half their force, but the survivors fought as if victory was inevitable. "Signal all coalition vessels," he said quietly. "General retreat. All ships withdraw immediately." The order stunned the coalition crews. They had never retreated from an inferior force. But, as they watched human ships continue attacking despite hopeless odds, they began to understand their commander's decision. The coalition withdrawal was anything but orderly. Ships fled in all directions, abandoning damaged vessels and wounded comrades. The precise formation that had begun the battle dissolved into chaos. Human ships pursued the retreating aliens, inflicting damage whenever possible. But they also performed rescues, pulling survivors from destroyed vessels regardless of their species. Dr. Foster's medical teams worked tirelessly to save alien wounded, treating them with the same care they provided to human casualties. The sight of human doctors risking their lives to save enemy personnel created confusion among the fleeing coalition forces. "Why do they help us?" asked a wounded supremacy officer as human medics treated his injuries. "Because that's what humans do," replied the medical technician. "We fight when we have to, but we help when we can." As the last coalition vessels disappeared into hyperspace, the human fleet regrouped around their makeshift base. They had won another impossible victory, but the cost had been severe. Nearly 40 ships had been destroyed, and hundreds of brave men and women would never see their homes again. On the bridge of the Defiance, Sarah Chen stood before her exhausted crew. Around her, the communication network carried voices from across the fleet. Civilians and military personnel, miners and scientists, all had fought together to defend humanity's future. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said quietly, "today we showed the galaxy what humans can do when we stand together. We faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. But, more importantly, we maintained our principles. We fought with courage, treated prisoners with dignity, and helped the wounded regardless of their species." The cheers that erupted across the fleet carried pride, relief, and determination. Humanity had not just survived. They had established themselves as a force that the galaxy could not ignore. In the years that followed, the Battle of Seoul would be studied by alien military academies across the galaxy. It became the definitive example of how unpredictability, courage, and moral flexibility could overcome superior numbers and technology. But, for the humans who fought that day, it was something simpler. It was proof that when faced with extinction, ordinary people could accomplish extraordinary things. They had looked into the abyss and refused to blink. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species that entered battle unafraid. Admiral Rixtal would later write in his memoirs, "We could not defeat them because we could not understand them. They fought with the heart of poets and the fury of demons. Most disturbing of all, they made us want to be better than we were." The human victory sent shockwaves across galactic civilization. Species that had never considered the value of courage began to question their own assumptions. The galaxy was changing, and, at the center of that change was a small blue planet called Earth and the remarkable creatures who called it home. Years later, when alien children asked their parents why the galaxy was different now, the answer was always the same: because humans taught us that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost.